Hello everyone. Tonight we are slipping quietly into a medieval village where the smell of wood smoke clings to every stone and the sound of roosters carries across the damp morning fields. You wake inside a tiny cottage, its thatched roof dripping from last night's rain, and for a moment the world feels more like a foggy dream than a real place. Your bed is a creaky wooden frame stuffed with straw, and the wool blanket scratching your chin isn't winning any awards for comfort. But it's what you know, and what you've known for as long as you've been called the midwife of this place. The villagers need you, even if they sometimes whisper about you. They'll need you tonight, they'll need you tomorrow, and truth be told, you wouldn't know who you are if they didn't. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And if you're listening right now, post your local time and where you are in the world. I love knowing who else is out there keeping me company. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soft background music, and let's enjoy our evening ride together. You wake slowly, not all at once, but in the kind of fragments that morning always brings in a medieval cottage. The first thing you notice is not sight but sound. The faint, stubborn drip of rain sliding from the thatched roof, landing one after another like beads on a rosary against the wooden frame above your head. Each drop reminds you that the night has passed, even if the darkness still lingers. Then comes smell, the thick memory of smoke clinging to your blanket, your hair, even the straw in your bed. The hearth died sometime before dawn, and now the whole room smells of its ghost. Your bed is little more than a wooden frame that has creaked under you for years, stuffed with straw that pokes at your skin through the thin linen sheet. The wool blanket scratches your chin, not with cruelty, but with the kind of rough affection that never improves no matter how many winters you've endured it. Comfort, here, is relative. Still, it's what you know and what you have always known as long as the village has called you its midwife. The thought warms you more than the blanket does, that you are needed. Needed today, needed tomorrow, needed always, even if whispers in the lane sometimes call you something less kind. You lie there for a moment, eyes half open, listening. Outside, the roosters are already rehearsing their part in the morning chorus, their cries carrying across the damp fields. Somewhere a dog barks, the sound muffled by a mist. If you close your eyes, the whole village feels like it's breathing around you, slow, heavy, and full of chores not yet begun. For a moment the world seems more like a dream than a place you must rise into. But you know better. Dreams don't make demands. Villages do. You roll onto your side and let out the small half-groan, half-sigh that has become your private ritual each dawn. It is not a dramatic sound, just enough to tell your body, yes, we are doing this again. You pull the blanket over your ears for one last stolen second, but the cold presses in too sharply to allow idleness. The floor waits for you, and you know it will not be kind. When your bare feet finally touch the planks, the chill stabs upward, icy daggers that no pair of socks could defend against. Medieval cottages do not care for comfort, they care for survival. You sit up, rub your arms through the wool of your nightclothes, and let your eyes wander around the room that is your whole world in miniature. The floorboards are uneven, worn smooth where you have stepped thousands of times, rough where no one has cared to sand them. In one corner, a small stool leans like a weary old man, and beside it, a chest that holds every belonging you can claim as your own. The fireplace, blackened and silent, waits with the iron pot still hanging over it, as though mocking you for expecting warmth after a night of neglect. It is cosy, yes, but in the way a prison cell can be called cosy when it at least remembers your name. The fire has gone out, of course. It always goes out when you need it most. You shuffle across the room, crouch down, and stare at the bed of ash with the same determination you use for stubborn mothers in labour. You blow gently into the grey dust, pretending for a moment you're a dragon, breathing life into old coals. Nothing. You poke at it with a stick. Still nothing. You mutter a curse under your breath. No harsher than the squeak of a mouse, then gather a bundle of twigs with the solemn patience of someone who knows that every day begins not with the sun, but with this ritual, bargaining with fire as if it were a spoiled child. Hunger nudges you next. Not the hopeful kind that dreams of feasts, but the practical kind that asks only for bread. Breakfast will be whatever is left from yesterday's loaf, hard hunk of rye, perhaps softened if fortune smiles, or perhaps eaten as it is, teeth grinding against its stubborn crust. Butter or cheese would be a small luxury. More often it is just bread, stacked upon bread, a meal that insists on being itself and nothing more. You think, not for the first time, that a smear of something sweet might change everything. But Nutella has not yet been invented, and in this century, tragedy often comes in the form of an empty jar that has never existed. As you chew, the village begins to announce itself. Chickens argue in the yards as though auditioning for a grim play. A cow moos low and deep from somewhere beyond the mist, and the blacksmith's hammer has already begun its ringing sermon against iron. The morning air pushes through the cracks in your walls, sharp and damp, carrying with it the smell of straw and smoke with an undertone of goat that no one pretends is pleasant. It is not romantic, but it is real, and reality is the cloth you wear each day, whether it itches or not. You are more than a healer here. You are the village's quiet alarm clock, its secret keeper, its tether to both life and fear. Women, heavy with worry or expectation, will come to you at any hour, knocking on your crooked door. Men nervous or stubborn will arrive with questions disguised as commands. Some will come for charms, others for remedies, others only to make sure you're still here and not vanished into the woods like the witches whispered about in sermons. You're respected, and you are feared, and you carry both weights in your chest like stones. Odd detail, you recall. In certain regions, midwives were required to swear before the church that they would not baptize babies in secret or hide charms beneath cradles. You imagine explaining to a priest with a tired face and sore hands that you have little time for hexes when you barely have time for sleep. The bread is gone, the fire is still sulking, and the morning has already stretched its fingers into the corners of your life. You wrap your shawl around your shoulders, breathe in the sharp dampness of the air, and tell yourself, again, that you will get through the day. Some mornings no one calls you. Other mornings you are pulled from hearth to lane to bed, running through mud as though babies conspire to test you. Today, though, the roosters are too loud and the village feels restless, as if something is already waiting for you just beyond the mist. The quiet doesn't last. It never does. Just as the fire begins to settle into its role, warming the room with a steady crackle, you hear the sound that reshapes the day. Footsteps outside, muffled voices hesitating at your door, and then the creak of wood as knuckles rap against it. In this century, a knock is never casual. It isn't the polite tap of a neighbour borrowing sugar. It is often urgency disguised in wood, the beginning of a story that will tangle you for hours. You sigh, wipe your hands against your apron, and rise to answer. Two women stand there, their shawls pulled tight, cheeks flushed from the cold. They step inside quickly, as if worried the mist itself might overhear them. Their eyes dart toward the floor, toward the rafters, anywhere but your face, because what they carry is heavy, and to speak it aloud feels like tempting fate. One finally leans closer, her voice a trembling whisper, mist cycles, strange flutterings in the belly, and a mother-in-law already hinting at cradles. Her words are half hope, half dread. The second shakes her head, her problem different but no less pressing. Her husband snores with such monstrous noise that she fears something demonic rattles in his chest. Both women look at you, waiting as if you hold the balance between sense and superstition. You play the role you have played 100 times. For the first, you offer reassurance, your voice even, steady, reminding her that bodies have their own calendars, and not all are punctual. You speak softly, wrapping her in calm without promising too much. For the second, you reach for a small pouch of dried herbs, tying it carefully with red thread, and tell her to burn it beneath her husband's pillow. Will it quiet his snores? Perhaps. Will it ease her mind? Certainly. And sometimes that is cure enough. You keep your expression still, though in the corner of your mind you imagine the husband's surprise when smoke curls under his nose at midnight. They glance around your cottage before leaving, eyes snagging on the bundles of dried plants that hang from the rafters like trophies. Perhaps they wonder which are true medicine and which are theatre. The truth? Both. Herbs dry faster when hung overhead, but they also create an air of mystery, a weight of knowledge that is as powerful as any tincture. Historians may one day debate whether midwives leaned more on skill or performance. Standing here, tying thread, meeting anxious eyes, you know the answer. One cannot live without the other. The door closes behind them, leaving the cottage quieter, emptier, but also warmer somehow. You sip from the bitter brew you left on the hearth, letting the taste anchor you, and think about how much of your life is science and how much is story. Both keep the village breathing. Both keep you standing. But the silence doesn't last long. It never does. Soon enough there is another knock, slower this time, accompanied by the sound of shuffling feet. Old Marta enters, wrapped in layers of shawls, her joints stiff, her voice already spilling complaint before the door is even closed. She mutters of aching knees, of a back that refuses to bend, of a granddaughter who cries without ceasing and must surely be haunted. You listen, nodding at the right moments, because half the cure is letting her unburden. Then you hand her a small pot of goose fat mixed with herbs, telling her to rub it into her knees. Will it help? Sometimes. Is it the salve, the plants, or her belief that carries the magic? You don't ask. Results are measured in relief, not in recipes. Marta sniffs, tucks the salve into her shawl and waddles out, leaving behind the faint smell of damp wool. You shake your head and smile because this too is the rhythm of your work. Listening, soothing, giving something to hold, whether a jar, a charm, or a word. Healing is not just what you do with your hands, it is what you allow others to believe with their hearts. Outside, the village is fully awake now. The hammer at the smithy rings like a bell calling everyone to duty. Children laugh and shriek as they chase a ragged ball through the mud. Chickens stage their endless rebellions against fences, and a cart creaks by, its wheels groaning under a load of wood. You hear your name suddenly, carried by a boy's voice, high, urgent, too sharp to ignore, slices through the morning noise like a knife through cloth. You feel the twist in your stomach even before you turn. That voice means the peace is over. It means you will leave the hearth, the herbs, the comfort of your own walls, and step once again into the heart of someone else's storm. The boy's voice cuts through the morning like a knife through cloth, sharp, urgent, leaving no doubt that this call is different. He appears at the end of the lane, breathless, legs splattered with mud, arms flailing as he waves for you to hurry. "Come quick!" he shouts, though the words hardly need translation. His eyes say everything. There is no time for questions, no room for hesitation. You sling your satchel over your shoulder, gather your shawl tighter and follow him, your shoes sinking into the muck with every hurried step. The lane narrows, bends between cottages that lean like tired shoulders against one another. Chickens scatter from your path. Geese hiss their disapproval, and dogs bark as if they too sense the urgency. The boy moves quickly, too quickly for someone so small, his feet slapping the mud in a rhythm that drags you along. Your breath comes sharp in the cold air, each exhale mingling with the mist until it looks like you're leaving fragments of yourself behind. At last you reach the cottage. It is small, its thatched roof sagging under the weight of damp, smoke curling weakly from the chimney as though exhausted already. Outside the door 2 women hover, faces pale, shawls clutched tightly, their hands wringing together like ropes being twisted. When they see you, their shoulders sag in relief, as if your presence alone is a shield against what waits inside. That, more than anything, is your role. The room steadies when you arrive. Panic recedes, at least for a moment. You step through the crooked doorway, and the world changes. The air inside is thick, stifling, heavy with the mingled smells of sweat, smoke and broth simmering somewhere unseen. The single small window is covered with cloth, shutting out the light, turning the space into a dim cavern where everything feels closer, hotter, more urgent. The air clings to your skin, damp and oppressive, making you feel as though you've stepped into someone else's breath. In the corner lies the woman. She is stretched out on a low bed, layered with blankets, her hair plastered to her forehead with sweat, her hands clutching the fabric as though she could anchor herself against the storm building inside her body. Her eyes flick up when you enter, wild, searching, pleading. She doesn't need to say a word. You know the look. You've seen it countless times. Fear and hope tangled together, desperate for you to untie the knot. The husband paces the room like a caged animal, muttering prayers under his breath, tripping over his own feet as if his body cannot contain his panic. His presence makes the air more frantic, every step adding to the chaos. One glance from you, just one, is enough. Your eyes fix him where he stands. You gesture, firm and simple, and he rushes to obey, seizing the bucket, running to fetch more water. Sometimes the best cure for a man's fear is to give it a task. In the opposite corner, the mother-in-law sits hunched, muttering omens and warnings, crossing herself repeatedly, her words weaving a tapestry of superstition. You let her be. Sometimes her mutters steady the room. Sometimes they only add noise. Either way, you have no time to silence her. Her voice becomes part of the background, like the crackle of the fire or the creak of the rafters. You move to the bedside, lowering yourself so your face is close to the woman's. You murmur words that are soft but strong. She is not alone. Her body knows what to do. She is stronger than the fear that grips her. You press a cool cloth to her brow, dip her lips with water, and let her grip your hand when the next contraction crashes over her. Her nails dig into your skin, but you do not flinch. Pain shared is pain made smaller. From your satchel, you draw out lavender, to scent the air, chamomile to brew if she can swallow it, and a red thread knotted 3 times. A small charm, simple, but one she clutches as though it were a lifeline. Odd detail. In some regions, women in labour were given a key to hold, symbolic of unearthing the body. In others, iron scissors were slipped under the bed to ward away spirits and to cut the pain. Tonight it is the red string. Belief steadies her hands, and that steadies her breath. The boy who fetched you hovers near the door, eyes wide, uncertain whether to enter or flee. You point at the fire and give him a task. Guard it, feed it, keep the flame alive. He nods eagerly, proud to be useful, and stations himself there like a soldier. Already the room feels less chaotic, each person tethered to a role. Husband fetching water, mother-in-law muttering prayers, boy guarding the fire, and you, the anchor at the woman's shadow. The rhythm of labour begins to build, rising and falling like waves against a cliff. The woman groans, low and guttural, her breath ragged, her body tightening with each surge. The room contracts with her, every person holding their breath when she cries, releasing it when she sags back onto the blankets. Outside, the village continues, children playing, carts creaking, geese muttering. But inside this small, smoky room, the world has shrunk to one bed, one woman, one struggle. You lean closer, steadying her again, your voice low, your presence constant. Whatever happens, whatever the day brings, she will not face it alone. You are here. The midwife, the one who holds the line between fear and life, between Sunna and the first cry. And though your own heart beats faster, though the heat and the smoke press heavy against you, you know this is where you belong, at the side of a woman stepping through the oldest threshold the world has ever known. The room holds its breath. You can feel it, the way the fire pauses between crackles, the way the rafters seem to bend lower, listening, the way every pair of eyes in the smoky dimness fixes on the woman in the bed. The rhythm has changed. You've seen enough births to know this moment. The shift from waiting to inevitability. Her cries deepen, pulling from somewhere ancient, somewhere beneath the ribs, raw and guttural. Her body arches, taut as a bowstring, and every muscle in the room seems to strain with her. You kneel closer, your shawl slipping from one shoulder, your hand steady though your own heart beats fast. You speak softly, low, and rhythmic, words less for their meaning than for their cadence. Breathe. You're strong. You're not alone. Each phrase lands like a stone set into a wall, building something solid around her. She clings to your wrist with one hand, the knotted red string in the other, and you can feel her strength and terror mingling through her grip. The husband hovers uselessly, wringing his hands, muttering promises to saints he barely remembers. He tries to step closer, but you catch his eye, a look sharp enough to slice his panic in half. He freezes, then stumbles back toward the bucket of water, grateful for the excuse to be busy. The mother-in-law mutters louder now, her voice half prayer, half incantation, as if the saints themselves could be bullied into helping. Her words swirl through the smoke, a counterpoint to the woman's cries. Another contraction surges, stronger than the last. The woman groans, then cries out, a sound that rattles the rafters and makes the boy at the hearth jump. You guide her breathing, pressing your hand to her shoulder, coaxing her through the storm. You can feel the moment balancing on the edge, the point where pain and effort tilt into a rival. Yes, you murmur, leaning closer. Push when you must. Trust your body. Trust this moment. Your words are steady, even as the air quivers with tension. Odd detail. In some villages, families would fling open every door, every chest, every cupboard, believing that opening the house would open the way for the child. You've walked into rooms where drawers gaped like mouths, shutters banged in the cold air, and chickens strutted inside with bewildered eyes. Tonight there is no time for theatrics. Tonight there is only this room, this bed, this woman. Her grip tightens until your knuckles ache. She pushes, body trembling with effort, face twisted with both fury and determination. The husband gasps as if he feels the pain himself. The mother-in-law weeps into her shawl, and the boy stares wide-eyed, forgetting the fire for a moment. The air is heavy, thick with heat and fear, and you can feel everyone teetering on the edge with her. And then, the shift. The sound you wait for, the sound that splits the world in two. A cry. Thin at first, then sharper. Stronger, sang through the smoke and panic like a blade through cloth. The newborn's voice fills the cottage, a sound so small yet so commanding it silences everyone else. The boy nearly drops the poker into the fire. The husband stumbles to his knees. The mother-in-law lets out a sob of pure relief. The baby is here. You lift the tiny body with practiced care, slippery and fragile, your hands sure even as your shoulders sag with the release of tension. You wrap the child in clean linen, quick but gentle, and cradle it close as the wails grow louder, healthier, more insistent. You glance around the room, meeting each gaze, letting them see what they needed most. Life. Life undeniable, life loud, life demanding to be heard. Odd detail. In some traditions, that first cry was believed to banish evil spirits lurking nearby. Families would hush at once, leaning in, desperate to hear the sound that meant hope had won. Whether superstition or instinct, you understand it deeply. That cry is more than breath, it is proof. You place the swaddled infant into the mother's arms. Her face transforms instantly, agony dissolving into awe, her eyes filling with tears as she stares at the child pressed against her chest. The husband clutches her shoulder, his lips trembling as if he's forgotten how to form words. Even the mother-in-law, so full of omens and mutters, smiles through her tears, pressing a wrinkled hand to the baby's damp head. The whole cottage exhales at once. Relief floods the air, heavy and dizzying, as though the walls themselves had been waiting for permission to breathe again. You sit back on your stool, your hands trembling slightly though no one sees. This is the secret of your work. You hold the storm steady until the cry comes, and only then do you let yourself feel the weight of what nearly wasn't. You tidy your tools, wiping your hands, steadying your breath. The fire crackles again, shadows dance on the walls, and for the first time in hours the room feels warm instead of oppressive. You allow yourself a smile, small and private, because you know the truth. Against fear, against pain, against the endless waiting, life has arrived, loud and undeniable. The cry softens into hiccups, then into the faintest whimpers, and the room exhales as if the walls themselves had been holding their breath. The hardest threshold has been crossed, but your work is far from finished. Now comes the part few sing about, but that matters most, the quiet binding together of mother and child, the steady hands that keep both tethered to the living. You reach for your satchel, the familiar weight of it reassuring. One by one you lay out what you'll need. The crooked knife, its edge worn smooth by years of service, gleams faintly in the firelight. Clean strips of linen, rolled tight, lie ready like silent witnesses. A small jar of honey waits, golden and patient, beside a pinch of dried sage. These are not treasures to anyone else, but to you they are the tools of holding life in place. You begin with the cord, that fragile bridge between worlds. It has been tied, firm and true, but it must be tended. You dab a touch of honey across it, the thick sweetness catching in the dim light. Honey is more than food here. It is shield, ward, promise. A sprinkle of powdered sage follows, a breath of sharp green scent that cuts through the heaviness of the room. Sage keeps rot away, or so the old ones say, and in truth you have seen wounds heal cleaner when it is used. The linen wraps around, snug but not strangling, the end tucked carefully beneath itself like a secret folded safe. You murmur as you work, not prayers exactly, but words shaped like them. Stay, heal, close, mend. The newborn shifts slightly, a tiny face crumpling, but no cry comes. You glance at the lips, at the small pulse beneath the soft skin, and see what you need to see. Strong enough, present. The mother strokes the bundle with trembling fingers, her eyes locked on the child's face as if she can't quite believe it is real. Next comes the swaddling. You unroll a strip of linen that has been washed so often it feels almost like silk. You fold it carefully, wrapping the infant with slow precision. Arms tucked close, but not bound. Legs straightened, but with room to curl. Chest wrapped, but left free enough for small breaths to rise and fall. You check the wriggle, making sure the child can still stretch into comfort. The baby frowns, sighs, and then nestles into the gentle prison of the cloth, surrendering to the familiar tightness. The mother-in-law hums softly, nodding, approving the technique as if she invented it herself. You let her think it. Reputation is another kind of medicine. The grandmother reaches forward, slipping a small scrap of red thread beneath the wrap. "To fool the evil eye," she whispers. You don't object. Belief is as binding as linen, and sometimes stronger. You've learned to let the charms stay so long as they do no harm. Iron scissors beneath a bed, keys in the mother's hand, thread tied 3 times. It is not your place to strip these comforts away. Healing is half body, half story, and tonight the story is one of protection. You turn your attention to the mother. She lies exhausted but glowing, her face pale and damp, her arms still trembling from the effort. You slip an arm behind her shoulders, lifting her just enough to sip from a cup of warm water laced with honey. Small sips, you murmur, small breaths. She obeys, the sweetness grounding her, her eyes never leaving the tiny bundle pressed to her chest. Later you will steep chamomile, perhaps willow bark if the afterpains bite too sharply. But for now, honey is enough. Honey to seal, honey to soothe, honey to remind her that sweetness still exists in the world. The bed is remade with practiced hands. Fresh linen over damp cloth, blankets drawn up where they sag. Warmed stones slipped near her feet to chase away the chill. The fire glows, its light softer now, flickering like a candle rather than a blaze. You adjust the rushlight, shortening its flame so the room rests in gentler shadow. Around you the air smells of rosemary, honey, sweat and smoke. It is a scent you know too well, one you carry home after every birth, one that lingers in your shawl no matter how often it is aired. The baby stirs, rooting instinctively, and you guide the mother with quiet instruction. The first latch is clumsy, then true, the small jaw working, the tiny throat fluttering as the first milk flows. You nod. Good. That's it, keep him close. Some in the village would tell her to pour the first milk away, fearful of its thickness. But you know better. That first milk is key, a door that must be opened, a gift too precious to waste. You let the child drink, steadying the mother's arms until her trembling eases. Around you rituals gather like shadows. The mother-in-law places a bowl of salt near the bed, insisting on a pinch across the baby's lips, a dusting on the tiny soles. Salt to keep what is pure from spoiling, salt to remind the spirits this child belongs to the living. You allow it. A sliver of iron is tucked into the mattress seam, A sprig of yarrow hung above the cradle's edge. Small tokens, small promises. You know some will forget them in a week, others will cling to them until the child walks. It does not matter. What matters is that for tonight everyone feels protected. Odd detail. In some houses, they insist that every door, chest and cupboard be opened during birth, lest the womb remain closed. Here, the grandmother has already unlatched the shutters, and you glance toward the dark square of night air, letting it drift across the room. The symbolism is simple, but no less powerful. Opening things means opening paths. Tonight, it is enough. At last, you take this bundle of placenta, wrap it in cloth, and step outside briefly into the cool night. The garden waits, quiet and damp. The earth soft beneath your spade. You bury it beneath rosemary and sage, plants with memory and protection, patting the earth smooth with hands that still smell of smoke and honey. A quick whisper escapes your lips, not for saints, not for spirits, but for yourself. A promise that what is buried will nourish, not haunt. Then you return inside, closing the door against the chill. The mother is drifting already, her eyelids heavy, the baby still at her breast. The grandmother hovers like a proud sentinel. The husband sits stunned, as though the world has remade itself in a single cry. You check once more, cord, swaddle, warmth, milk, then gather your tools, tucking them back into your satchel. The crooked knife, the linen scraps, the red thread. All back in their places, waiting for the next time the village calls. You let yourself breathe deeply, your own shoulders sagging, the weight of the room easing. The storm has passed, but the quiet after is its own kind of work. You glance at the fire, now steady, and think, another life delivered, another night bound by thread, salt, and breath. By the time you step back into your own lane, the sky has already begun to darken. Evening presses down like a heavy quilt, stitched together with mist and wood smoke. The cottages huddle close against one another, their roofs sagging, their doors crooked, their chimneys whispering threads of smoke that vanish into the dusk. Your shoes are caked with mud, your shawl damp at the edges, your satchel lighter in herbs but heavier in the invisible weight of the day. Every step home feels longer than it should, though your feet know the path as well as they know the floorboards of your cottage. The geese, loud tyrants of the morning, are now hunched in silence, their bodies puffed into round shapes that look like loaves of bread abandoned on the mud. Even the chickens, eternal squabblers, have tucked their beaks beneath their wings, surrendering to the night. Only the dogs still bark, one here, one there, their voices carrying across the village like uneven drum beats. You push your door open, and the familiar smell of your cottage greets you. Smoke, herbs, wool, and the faint metallic tang of old ash. It is not comfort in the way future centuries will know comfort, but it is yours. The fire has sulked itself down to embers. You crouch, coaxing it awake again, adding a log, poking at it with the iron until flames stretch upward like tired arms. The light flickers against the walls, painting them in orange and shadow. You drop your satchel beside the stool, tug off your shoes, and sink into the kind of sigh that comes from the very bones. For a moment, you allow yourself to sprawl across the bed, straw poking at your skin, wool scratching at your cheek, eyes closed against the smoke. Comfort is a relative thing, and tonight, even this feels like a blessing. But evening doesn't grant you silence for long. It never does. Another knock rattles the door, timid, almost apologetic. You rise, slower this time, shoulders stiff, and open it to find a man and his young daughter. The girl looks pale, her hair damp with sweat, her eyes glassy with fever. The father stammers about pains, about how she hasn't eaten, about strange shivers that came with the night. You wave them in without a word, gesturing toward the hearth. The girl sits, curling into herself, and you press your palm to her forehead. Hot. Too hot. Not the heat of exertion, not the flush of embarrassment, but the sharp, dry heat of a body at war with itself. You fetch a pouch of a dried elderflower from your satchel, sprinkle a handful into steaming water, and press the cup into her hands. Sip slowly, you murmur, tucking a damp cloth against her brow. The father hovers, asking too many questions, his words stumbling over one another like frightened goats. At last you silence him with a task. Fetch clean water from the well. He bolts gratefully, relieved to be useful, and the room grows calmer without his pacing. The girl sips, her breathing slowing, her eyelids lowering, the fever beginning to yield beneath the elderflower's gentle persuasion. Before the fire has finished boiling the herbs, another knock comes, louder this time. An older man stumbles in, clutching his ear, groaning as though the world were ending. A demon lives inside, he insists. It whispers at night. You hide your smile and guide him to the stool. From the hearth you warm a sliver of onion, soft and fragrant, then press it gently against his ear. He yelps, then sighs, the pain dulled or at least distracted by the sharp scent. Whether it is medicine or mere belief doesn't matter. Relief is relief, and that is all he came for. Not long after, a woman arrives, complaining of belly cramps from too much cabbage stew. You hand her mint leaves, instructing her to chew them slowly, assuring her that by morning she will feel lighter. She leaves still muttering, but calmer. Then comes a boy with a splinter in his finger, wailing as though he'd lost the entire hand. You pluck it out with your crooked knife, smear honey on the small wound, and send him away with a pat. Each visitor brings their own burden, and you send them away carrying something lighter, even if only the sense that someone listened. The father returns with the water, his daughter now dozing softly, her fever beginning to soften, her face less flushed. You hand him the jug of elderflower brew, instructing him to keep her in bed, to let her sip often, to let time and warmth do the rest. He bows clumsily, gratitude spilling from his mouth in a rush of words. The old man with the onion follows, still rubbing his ear but declaring himself free of demons. One by one the cottage empties, and silence returns at last. You sit before the fire, resting your elbows on your knees, your head in your hands. The flames crackle, the shadows dance, and exhaustion settles across your shoulders like another shawl. Evening was supposed to be rest, but instead it became another tide of ailments, each demanding its moment, each trusting you to be the wall against fear. And yet, as the quiet stretches, you smile faintly. You may not banish demons, but you banish dread. You may not cure every pain, but you make people believe they are not alone. Sometimes belief is the strongest medicine of all. The fire pops, startling you from your thoughts, and you mutter a small laugh at yourself. You whisper a private joke about loyalty cards for midwives, about opening a general complaints department with straw benches and nettle tea for waiting patients, about how you should charge hazard pay for panicked husbands. The cottage does not answer, except with the steady hum of the fire. It is enough. You lean back, eyes half closed, letting the warmth seep into your bones. The lane outside has gone silent. Even the dogs, who never seem to tire of their own voices, have curled themselves into sleep. The geese no longer hiss, the children no longer cry, the hammer at the smithy has long gone cold. Night has folded itself over the village like a thick wool blanket, muffling everything except the faint rustle of wind through straw roofs and the occasional low murmur of cattle shifting in their pens. You close your door and let the latch fall. For the first time today, the world belongs only to you. The fire glows low, its embers like a cluster of small red stars, steady but fading. You crouch to feed it one last log, poking at the coals until the flames stir, stretching themselves upward with reluctant grace. The warmth rolls toward you slowly, seeping into your knees, your palms, your tired shoulders. You lower yourself onto the stool, fold your hands in your lap and allow your body to sag, every muscle releasing its claim on vigilance. At last you can be simply a woman by her fire, not a midwife holding the weight of a village. Your satchel lies open nearby, its contents half unpacked, half forgotten. The crooked knife rests where you left it, clean and sharp. The strips of linen lie coiled like pale snakes. A pouch of herbs sits torn open, its scent drifting faintly. Rosemary, chamomile, sage, reminders of all the hands that clutched yours today. You gather them slowly, one by one, as if putting away your tools might also put away the burdens of the day. The act becomes a ritual, quiet and deliberate. Fold the linen, tie the pouch, lay the knife down flat. Each gesture says it is finished, at least until morning. The house smells of rosemary and honey, of sweat and smoke, of the faint metallic tang that clings after childbirth. These scents are yours now, as much a part of you as the lines in your palms. You wonder if the villagers notice it when they pass you in the lane. Perhaps they do. Perhaps they whisper not just about your herbs and charms, but about how your very skin seems steeped in the strange mixture of life and blood and fire. Some call you healer, others call you witch. Both names land on you like cloaks you did not choose but must wear. You smile faintly into the firelight. If they knew how often you felt neither magical nor wise, only tired, perhaps they would whisper less. You think of the oath you swore years ago, in the small church with its damp stone walls and its priest who smelled of incense and ink. You swore to serve honestly, to keep secrets, to baptize infants in danger if no priest could be found. The memory of the words still lingers, heavier than the book they were read from. Some days you wonder if the village remembers the oath more clearly than you do. They trust you because of it, or perhaps in spite of it. Either way, you are bound to them with speech as much as with hands. Odd detail drifts into your thoughts, the stories people tell about women like you. Midwives who fly as owls through the night. Midwives who steal breath from babies. Midwives who whisper with the devil at the edge of the woods. You laugh softly, not because you think them silly, but because you know their origin. People must explain what they fear. They see you too often at the cliff where life might fall into silence, and they cannot help but weave stories. If a child lives, you're a saint. If it does not, you're a witch. Either way, they must name you something larger than human. Tonight, you sit by the fire and allow yourself to be only human. The frog in the rafters chirps once, a small sound that fills the silence like a bell. You answer with a weary smile. He has been your companion longer than most neighbours. You mutter a private joke to him, something about holding a night council with amphibians, something about charging admission for the privilege of listening to your fire crackle. The frog says nothing more, but in his quiet you feel strangely heard. You sip from a cup of chamomile, the steam fogging your lashes, the taste bitter and soothing all at once. You think of the women you served today, the girl with fever now sleeping under her father's watchful eye, the old man convinced of demons now soothed by onion, the mother whose cry filled the room before her child's did, and then the newborn, swaddled, lips salted, heart beating against the linen. Each one has left an imprint, as much in your memory as in your satchel. They will sleep tonight because you answered the knock. And you, will you sleep? That depends on whether the village lets you. You rest your elbows on your knees and let your thoughts wander further than the walls. You think of the apprentices you never had and the children who sometimes linger at your door wide-eyed, watching you measure herbs or tie charms. They memorize you without meaning to, the way your hands move linen beneath a woman, the way your voice cuts fear into silence, the way you make fire seem to listen. One day you tell yourself you should let them carry the satchel, feel its weight, learn that in knowledge and burden are the same thing. But tonight it is enough to know the work continues, even if only in echoes. The embers shift, collapsing inward, and the room glows softer. You lean back, stretching your spine, and whisper a blessing, not in Latin, not in rhyme, just in simple words you trust. Let what must rest. Rest. Let what must rise, rise. Let the tired breathe easy. Let the small ones wake laughing. The words dissolve into the crackle of wood, into the quiet hum of the village, into the soft breath of night itself. You pull the wool blanket around your shoulders, lay your head against the bed frame and close your eyes. Outside the lane sleeps. Inside your tools sleep. Even the frog in the rafters sleeps. For a little while you may too, until the next knock comes, until the village needs you again. For now, though, the fire glows, the cottage breathes, and you, door and lantern, healer and rumour, saint and witch, let yourself drift into the arms of night. Morning comes not with a trumpet of light, but with a grey, reluctant sigh. You wake to the sound of roosters arguing with one another across the misty fields, their voices sharp and insistent, as though they believe the world would stop turning if they fell silent. The wool blanket clings to you, heavy with the smoke of yesterday's fire, and for a long moment you lie still, listening to the cottage breathe. The embers have slumbered down into a faint glow, barely enough to warm your toes. Your body aches with the memory of yesterday, the long hours by the bedside, the steady hands, the waiting, the strain. Every muscle seems to remind you. You are not as young as when you first carried this satchel. You sit up slowly, swinging your feet onto the cold floorboards. The chill shoots upward like icy knives, and you hiss under your breath, muttering a curse that would make no priest proud. The cottage greets you with the same rough comforts as always. Uneven boards, bundles of herbs dangling from the rafters, a pot blackened from too many fires, a stool that wobbles when you lean too far to the left. Familiar, flawed, but yours. You poke at the embers, coaxing them into reluctant flame, and set water to heat. The ritual is as constant as breath. Fire, water, herbs, hope. Without it, the day cannot begin. Outside, the village is stirring. You hear the thud of a cartwheel rolling through mud, the bleating of goats demanding breakfast, the faint chatter of women leaning across doorways. Mist curls low, softening the crooked outlines of the cottages, making the world look half real. You step out, shawl wrapped tight, satchel slung across your shoulder, and the cold morning air bites your cheeks awake. Children scatter at the sight of you, giggling nervously before hiding behind their mother's skirts. A boy whispers something about owls and witches, his words hushed but not hushed enough. You catch it, as you always do. You smile faintly, not with the anger, but with the weary patience of someone who has carried such whispers for years. Yet there are other eyes too. A woman calls out a greeting, gratitude thick in her voice. You helped her last winter when fever nearly carried her husband away. A man nods stiffly, cautious but respectful, his gaze darting to the satchel as though it might open itself and reveal its secrets. You are both feared and needed, a contradiction you've long learned to live with. Without you, births would falter, fevers would linger, secrets would stay unspoken. With you, the village keeps breathing, though never quite comfortably. You stop by your small garden plot, brushing dew from the leaves with your fingers. Rosemary sharp enough to clear the head, chamomile soft as a lullaby, sage with its old reputation for warding off spirits. You pluck what you need, tuck it into your pouch, and rise with damp hands. The smell of earth clings to you as you walk back through the lane. A shepherd passes with his flock nodding, though his sheepdog growls softly until shushed. At the smithy the hammer has begun again, ringing out in rhythm with your steps. Sparks leap like fireflies in the gloom, and the blacksmith's eyes follow you, wary, respectful, a little uncertain. The line between healer and witch is thin, and you balance on it every day. At one door, a woman calls you inside. Her child has a cough that rattles the chest, worse in the mornings. You brew a quick mixture of honey and thyme, pressing the warm cup into tiny hands. The child drinks, grimaces, but swallows dutifully. The mother's eyes shine with relief. At another cottage, an old man shows you his swollen ankle, cursing the wet weather. You smear goose-fat salve across the joint, wrap it in linen, and leave him grumbling but calmer. Each house offers you something in return: an egg, a heel of bread, a promise to mend your fence when spring comes. Payment enough. Sometimes more than enough. But always you hear it. The murmurs when your back is turned. The sidelong glances. The children whispering that you can talk to the moon. The men wondering if your charms are blessings or tricks. The women both grateful for your presence and uneasy about your knowledge. You carry it all, the weight of trust and suspicion together, like water sloshing in a bucket. If one spills, the other always follows. By the time you return to your cottage, your satchel is lighter in herbs and heavier in eggs and promises. The fire inside greets you with a stubborn glow, and you set the new bundles on the shelf, letting their scents mingle with those already drying. You lower yourself onto the stool, stretch your sore back, and listen as the village hums beyond your walls. Chickens clucking, babies crying, gossip spilling like water over stones. The day has only just begun, and already you feel the rhythm of it settling. Knocks, cures, whispers, nods, suspicions, gratitude. It is a circle without end, and you are its quiet centre. You breathe in the mingled scents of smoke and sage, fold your hands in your lap, and let yourself smile faintly. Whatever they call you, healer, witch, saint, nuisance, you know this truth. The village needs you, even if it never says so aloud. And as long as the knocks keep coming, you will answer. The day stretches on, and with it comes the steady rhythm of your trade. No 2 hours are alike, yet all seem to rhyme with one another. The village never stops needing you, not for long, and you learn to move between duties as a bird moves between branches, light-footed, cautious, carrying small offerings from one place to the next. By mid-morning the first knock comes. A young mother, pale with worry, arrives at your door carrying a swaddled infant who will not stop crying. The sound is thin, constant, slicing through the smoke of your cottage like a needle. You take the child into your arms, feeling its tiny ribs flutter like the wings of a sparrow. You hum low, pressing your ear against its chest, listening for signs you've come to recognize. The rattle of phlegm, the pause of breath, the catch of a cough. Then softly, you dip your finger into a small jar of honey mixed with a pinch of thyme, letting the sweetness touch the baby's lips. The wailing eases, if only slightly, and the mother exhales with trembling shoulders. You place the child back in her arms, whispering that it will pass, that the herbs will help, that she is not failing. Sometimes the cure is not the mixture, but the reassurance. Later you are summoned to a field where a man has sliced his hand open on a sickle. The wound gapes, raw and angry, blood painting the earth in dark streaks. He curses loudly, ashamed more of his carelessness than of the pain. You wash the wound with water so cold it makes him hiss, then press cloth soaked in sage against it. Your hands work with calm efficiency, stitching not with thread but with patience and linen ties. You smear honey to keep rot at bay, then bind the hand tight. He flexes his fingers once, grimaces, then thanks you with a nod that is half respect, half embarrassment. He presses a bundle of onions into your hand as payment. You take them with a smile. Onions for wounds, onions for demons, onions for supper, versatile companions. By afternoon, word spreads that another woman has gone into labour. You feel the familiar tightening in your chest. Not fear, but anticipation. You fetch your satchel, heavier now with fresh bundles of herbs, and walk quickly through the mud to her cottage. Inside you find her bent double, gripping the edge of a stool, sweat already streaking her face. Her family hovers, murmuring prayers, fretting, asking questions that only slow the air. You shoo them gently but firmly, leaving only one trusted hand beside her. The birth is long, longer than most, the hours stretching into a haze of groans and whispered reassurances. At last, a new cry breaks free, soft at first, then stronger, as though life itself had to be coaxed into the room. Relief sweeps through the house like a wind after storm. You bind, you swaddle, you murmur the same plain blessing you've whispered 100 times. Rest, rise, breathe, live. Odd detail. Some families insist on burying the afterbirth immediately beneath the threshold, so that the child will always find the way home. Others prefer the orchard, beneath apple or pear trees, believing sweetness will seep into the child's bones. Today the family asks for the threshold, and you oblige, tucking the small bundle beneath the earth, worn hard by feet. You wonder briefly if one day the child will stand there, unaware of the secret beneath his steps, and feel comfort without knowing why. By evening your body aches as though you have walked the length of the kingdom. The satchel hangs lighter at your side, its contents spent in poultices, charms, swaddles and salves. Yet the weight in your chest is heavier, filled with the voices and cries you have carried all day. You sit by the well for a moment, letting the rope burn your palms as you draw water. The cold splash against your face startles you awake, if only briefly. Around you, the village buzzes with its small dramas. Geese chasing children, women gossiping at doorways, men hauling wood and muttering about weather. Ordinary life spinning endlessly, stitched together by hands like yours in moments no one else records. You think, as you often do, about your place in all this. Are you healer, witch, midwife, confidant? Each day convinces you of a different answer. You've been saint and scapegoat, saviour and suspect, often within the same hour. Historians one day may debate whether women like you practice medicine or magic. You know the truth is simpler and heavier. You practice survival. Herbs and honey, linen and knots, charms and words, tools not of mystery but of necessity. You do what must be done when no one else will. As the sun dips low, you finally step back toward your cottage, your shawl tight, your feet dragging. The satchel bumps against your hip. A loyal companion, a burden you cannot set down. Smoke from the hearths rises in thin ribbons, carrying the smells of cabbage stew, burning wood, damp wool. The air chills quickly, reminding you that the day is nearly gone. Tomorrow will come with new knocks, new cries, new whispers. The circle never ends, but for tonight you tell yourself the work is enough. Night falls heavy and unhurried. By the time you push open your cottage door, the village has tucked itself beneath the blanket of dark. Smoke rises from chimneys like tired prayers. Dogs bark half-heartedly before surrendering to silence. And even the geese, those feathered tyrants, have stilled into uneasy slumber. Inside, your cottage greets you with its familiar blend of scents. Charred wood, drying herbs, damp wool, and the faint metallic note of the crooked knife resting in your satchel. You lower the satchel to the stool with a soft thud. Your shoulders sag, your feet ache, and the shawl clings to you with the damp of mist and sweat. You crouch before the hearth, coaxing flame out of stubborn embers, blowing gently until sparks leap and catch. Soon the fire stretches, licking the logs, throwing light and warmth across the small room. Shadows sway against the walls like silent companions. You sit, close enough to feel the heat seep into your tired bones, and let yourself breathe deeply for the first time all day. Your hands will not stay still. They tidy by habit, folding the strips of linen, hanging fresh bundles of herbs, rinsing the spoon you use to stir bitter brews. The motions are quiet spells of their own. Order after chaos, rhythm after stem. Each item returned to its place is a promise to tomorrow. The crooked knife gleams faintly in the firelight. The red string curls like a question in your palm. The jars of honey and goose fat wait patiently, as though knowing they will be called upon again before long. When your hands finally rest, your mind does not. The silence of night is never truly empty. It fills with the echoes of voices you carried through the day, the groans of a woman in labour, the thin cry of a newborn, the muttered prayers of grandmothers, the curses of wounded men, and beneath them always the whispers. Whispers in the lanes, whispers behind shutters, midwife, witch, healer, trickster, trusted and feared in equal measure. You live in that thin space where gratitude and suspicion braid together until no one can tell them apart. You stare into the fire, watching its restless glow, and you remember the stories told about women like you, that you turn into owls at night, that you steal breath from infants, that you keep company with devils in the woods. You laugh softly, not because the tales are funny, but because you know what breeds them. People see you too often at the cliff where life balances on silence. If a child survives, you are a saint. If it does not, you are the witch who stole it. Either way, they must name you something larger than human, and so they do. Odd detail returns to you. Years ago, a woman insisted on leaving scissors open beneath her bed, believing it would keep the path open for her baby. You had turned the blades inward after she slept, unwilling to let her rest with steel breathing at her ankles. The baby came safely, and the mother swore it was the scissors. You never corrected her. Sometimes belief heals more surely than herbs. Sometimes you carry the truth quietly so that others may carry peace. You sip from a cup of chamomile, its steam curling around your face, its bitterness familiar. Outside, the night breathes, owls calling. The faint splash of water in the ditch, the restless shifting of cattle in their pens. Inside, only the fire speaks, crackling in approval of your solitude. You whisper a small joke into the flames, something about opening a night clinic, with straw benches and nettle tea, something about charging husbands extra for fainting during births. No one laughs but you, but the laughter still softens the edges of weariness. And then, as always, the weight of solitude settles across your shoulders. You are known by everyone and yet kept apart. Midwives belong to all, but to none. You share in the most intimate, most desperate moments of their lives. Yet at the feast you sit at the edge, neither entirely trusted nor entirely shunned. It is a lonely place to stand, this doorway between fear and hope. And yet, there is strength in it too. You are the one who steadies, who witnesses, who carries. You are the lantern in dark rooms, the hand that ties knots true. You pull the wool blanket closer and whisper a blessing into the room, plain and unadorned. Let the village sleep, let the weak grow stronger, let the new ones dream without fear. Let the tired rest without interruption. The fire answers with a soft crack. The frog in the rafters chirps once, and you close your eyes. Alone, yes, but never useless, never without purpose. Tomorrow will bring more knocks, more whispers, more lives teetering between silence and cry. You will rise, satchel on your shoulder, shawl around your neck, and do it all again. For now, the night belongs to you and your fire, and that is enough. The night settles deeper, folding the village into silence so complete it feels like the earth itself has exhaled. You sit before the fire, blanket drawn high around your shoulders, and watch the flames soften into embers. The glow is steady now, no longer fierce, but warm enough to hold the dark at bay. Your body aches in every seam, but the ache is familiar, almost comforting. It is the price of a day lived fully, of hands that did not refuse any call. Your satchel rests at your feet, emptied and refilled by the rhythm of the hours. The crooked knife is clean, the linen folded, the herbs sorted into small bundles, ready for whatever tomorrow might demand. These are not just tools, they are your companions, silent and patient, always waiting. You reach out, brush your fingers over the leather strap and feel a small pulse of reassurance. Tomorrow the satchel will be heavy again. Tonight it rests as you must. The cottage is quiet except for the low murmur of the fire and the soft chirp of the frog in the rafters. Outside the lane is wrapped in mist, the roof sagging under dew, the animals tucked into their straw. Somewhere a dog dreams, its muffled bark rising and falling like a tide. The village sleeps, unaware of how much of its peace is carried on your shoulders. You think of them, of the woman you held through labour, of the newborn swaddled and salted, of the girl whose fever eased under elderflower, of the old man convinced his ear held a demon. Each life brushed yours today, each left a trouble. Some will remember you with gratitude, others with unease, both a part of the bargain. You lean back, letting the blanket scratch against your cheek, and your thoughts wander toward the edge of sleep. You imagine what the villagers say of you now, tucked into their homes. Some bless your name, some whisper about witches and charms, some tell stories of owls with human eyes. You let them all exist without bitterness. Their fear, their reverence, their confusion, these are threads in the same cloth binding you to them. Without it you would be invisible. With it you are necessary. Odd detail flickers in your memory. A woman once asked you if midwives ever sleep, or if you sit awake each night waiting for the next knock. You laughed then, but the truth lies somewhere between. You do sleep, but lightly, as if the fire itself keeps part of you awake, always listening for the shuffle of feet outside, for the hesitant rap at the door, for the cry carried through mist, always ready to rise, shawl around your shoulders, satchel in hand, to step once more into another household storm. You sip the last of your chamomile, lukewarm now, and set the cup aside. The embers crackle low, painting the rafters with their faint red glow. You whisper a final blessing into the room, not for yourself, but for the village. Let the mothers heal. Let the children grow strong. Let the sick find rest. Let the fearful find peace, and let the knocks come only when they must. The words dissolve into the air, simple and weighty all at once. At last you lower yourself onto the bed. The straw pricks, the wool scratches, but it hardly matters. You curl onto your side, pull the blanket tight and let your eyes close. The fire breathes steadily. The frog offers one last chirp and the night folds you into its arms. Tomorrow will come with its smoke and whispers, its births and fevers, its gratitude and suspicion. Tomorrow the knocks will begin again, and you will answer. You always do. But for now, for this single, fragile stretch of night, the village sleeps, the fire hums, and you, midwife of mist and ember, door and lantern both, drift into the cradle of dreams.